All right. Do you want me to welcome people?
Yeah, are we jumping in? Oh my God, we're jumping in. Okay, I'm ready.
Parenting's hard, you don't know what to do. You're blaming your kids, but it's probably you. You love your kids and that you can trust. Just remember your kids don't suck.
Welcome to Your Kids Don't Suck, cultivating closeness with your children through non-coercive conscious parenting. We're your hosts, Cara Tedstone and Rythea Lee. Let's dive in and grow together.
Welcome back to Your Kids Don't Suck, the podcast where we gut ourselves as a way to model the pain, the trials, the tribulations, the challenges, the wins, the victories of parenting out of the box in a non-coercive collaborative way. We're so in it. Me and Cara are both therapists and we're in different stages of life and we're just so in our process and we're great friends. And today we're going to talk about what I call merged parts, the parts of us that are merged with the people who hurt us the most. Merged parts are the parts that pop out with our kids where we act like our parents or other trusted adults that we vowed we would never act like. And we go, how could I be acting like that? I said I would never yell like that. I said I would never say you're a piece of shit or whatever. And that's our merged parts, the parts of us that are the most wounded and the most separated out from our core self and the most conditioned and the most brainwashed. And I'm calling that a merged part. What do you call it in your work, Kara?
I think I call it a merged part two. Blended, a
A
part
blend.
that's really blended with the system. So a part that, um, takes over and and you want to be able to separate it out. You want to be able to have a relationship with it. You want to be able to externalize it. You want to unblend. You want to be able to shift in and out of that part so that you can, you know, access your self energy. So I would refer to that as like a part that you're blended with.
So can you describe it more, what you mean? Because people probably don't even know what self energy is. So
The self energy place that we all have inside of us is everybody has a self. That this is the IFS framework, how it refers to how we are as human beings, how we're designed. So we all have selves, and then we all also have different parts of ourselves. And so when you're in your self energy, you have 8 C's. This is what Dick Schwartz describes as being in self energy. That is, you feel compassionate, you feel creative, you are connected, you feel confident, you are calm, you have courage, and you have clarity. And so that self energy place is when you are really you. You are really who you are. You are, seeing things clearly and you are not blended or merged with the other parts of you that make you act disproportionately to the things that you're triggered by. You can actually feel calm, confident, connected, curious, compassionate, courageous in relationship, and in this context we're talking about parents and kids. So when I feel like I'm in my self energy, I actually feel really relaxed in my body. And I actually don't feel that tension that I often do feel like in my neck and my shoulders.
mm,
And I could go on and on, but like when we feel tension in our bodies, Dick Schwartz refers to those parts of us as trailheads. So like the places where we feel really tense, that could be an actual place where you have access then into a part of yourself that is really angry or really stressed or overwhelmed or, you know, um, yeah, burdened with a ton of stuff that you aren't even conscious of. When you're in your self energy, you don't actually feel that way. You actually don't feel that tension and you don't feel that disconnect.
Right, it's almost like we have different bodies. We go
Yes.
into different bodies, like, we feel this one day you feel like, "Oh, I'm so old, I feel like an old lady, la, la, la," and another day you're like, "I feel so alive, I feel so vibrant," and they're like
Yes.
different selves. They're, like, literally different selves. I thought it might be cool to each talk about an experience with our children where we feel in the self energy, and then an example of when we feel in our merged part. Maybe we could think of an example of each. Let's just start with the self one.
I mean, I have a vague one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's two different kinds of times I feel in myself. One is recently my daughter and I were wrestling. She was like doing heavy. She's 5'9". She's much stronger than me at this point. We were fully wrestling for probably about a half an hour, and then later in the night we did it again, and then right before bed we did it again. And we haven't wrestled since she was, I don't know, it's been a year or something. I don't know. She was like fully in it, and I felt so much joy and connection. And I felt like I was just using my whole body, and it was so athletic. We're screaming and yelling. So great. That was a self exchange of love. Where I'm
Mm,
my adult and she's fully her child self, and it's playful and joyful and alive.
mm. The picture of her is above your head. Is that her?
Yeah, that's
Oh my
her.
gosh, that's so
Baby.
she's a baby in that one, like an
Yeah,
infant.
she's the cutest little baby. She came out with her eyes open, so she was like a, an old soul, and you were just,
My daughter did too.
yeah. So
She
people
was
would
just
look at her and they would be like, "Whoa."
I know. We have, yeah, I had the same experience.
Wait, so I want to talk about another self example.
Mhm.
Is recently my daughter's been having a lot of feelings, and I think a lot of it's hormonal. And she was just telling me how much she hates me and how annoying I am, and my voice is annoying, and she can't stand me, and she doesn't want her friends to meet me.
Mm.
And I mean, this example is after, years and years of my own therapy and then practicing this kind of parenting. I just felt complete love for her while she was telling me how much she can't stand me. I just felt total love for her. That's me being in my self energy. I'm like, wow, I'm glad she can say this to me. And I see how much pain she's in. And I remember being really embarrassed of my parents. And I know she's in the separating from me phase. I just could see her process.
Mm.
I could
Yeah,
see
see
her
what
process.
really was happening.
Yeah, without reacting.
Ah.
And that's being in the self. That's being in the self.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good way to put it because I think you're describing the clarity that you can really see what's happening there that for what it really is, which is not a reflection of you.
Right.
Or
Not
how
taking it
bad your kid
personally.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say parents who will hear that story who are not on this path probably aren't listening to our show. But if they ever did come across it and heard that, they'd probably be like, "That is absolutely outrageous. Your child should never be allowed to talk to you that way."
Right.
So
Well,
you're really creating like a culture of kids who don't give a fuck about, anybody but themselves.
I didn't say this part and it's not that important, but then last night she on her own without me saying absolutely anything. So she said, "I'm sorry, I've been acting mean to you the last 2 days." And
Yeah.
I said, "I know, thank you. I know you're really stressed." And then we talked about her stress. So like kids do have their own, they have a conscience. Kids have a sense of right and wrong. It just might not be on your timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. That was such a good example. I love the clarity in that one. Well, I've been feeling really I've been feeling self energy a lot lately, I think, with my kid. This morning, just usually I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling very like I get up earlier than her, so I try to have like my tea or something before I get her from her room. And usually she's awake, but she's like chilling in her crib playing, like singing a song about me or something. And then she's so cute. I'll be like in the hallway and I'll be wearing my slippers and she'll be like, "I hear mommy clip clop clip clop clip," and she's like talking about my slippers. It's so cute. Oh my God, it's precious. And yeah, you're usually in the morning in like the early hour, I'm like dealing with like just thinking about the day ahead and like all the things I need to do. And I don't know, just really managing in my mind like stresses, like dealing with like the mindset of like I have so much to do and I've got to manage all this stuff. And lately, I have been trying to sort of talk about a little bit, like I wrote an Instagram post about embodying being okay with like my kids' feelings and actually not blaming myself for them, which is like a whole thing that I can get into another time. But I've been working really rigorously on that idea, like embodying it's okay. Like you don't need to control it, you just have to trust it. And I do have a way to articulate how I got there, but I won't talk about it here. I will just say that I am actually feeling really okay with my kids' feelings. And this shift has profoundly impacted my ability to move into my self energy. I don't know if this is making any sense. Do you
It,
have any
it's
questions?
really making sense. Yes.
Okay, okay,
But
because it's
it's also the reverse. Part of the reason why you can be okay with their feelings is because you're in your self energy.
yes,
Both
yes, it's
things, they feed each other.
yes, and it's really interesting because I'm seeing it as a shift from a merged part into self energy because of something that I did internally. Like I actually have been able to heal something that I was really dealing with for actually years now, about 3 years now, where I was just getting triggered out of my mind by my kids' unhappiness. And I did a lot of work on that recently. And I actually am able to now remain in self energy most of the time, interestingly. I used to be in a situation where I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go, I've got all this shit to do. I've got work today. I've got stuff. I've got podcasts, da da da. And my kid's going to have a whole bunch of tantrums and that's going to send me for a loop. Now I'm like, I'm unbothered around her and what she's going to bring. Like I feel very connected to my ability to stay regulated, to stay confident, to stay, connected
Yeah.
to her and calm and, curious and clear and all the C's, Dick would be like, good job. You know them all.
Right. This is after like, weeks and months and months and months of being rather tormented about this topic.
Tormented and almost dreading, like dreading it, dreading.
Well, you would
Yeah.
say you just take one look at her and you'd be triggered. You
I'd
just
be triggered because I'd be dreading me, my feelings of being not able to support her, really. That's kind of at the end of the day what I'd
But
be
this is about your
worried
merged
about.
stuff, though. I mean, you're talking about being on the other end of coming out of merged parts. So, like, I think it's a good segue actually into
Hmm.
merged. And even though we think we understand how abuse happens, I'm using a strong word, abuse, now, but like because we understand abuse, like people who are abused abuse other people. We understand people who got hurt other people, like that's what it is. People who got hit their kids, like people who got shamed usually shame their kids, like that's how it happens. And what those is that we are children, we imprint our parents' pain, we internalize it, we live with it as if it's our own, and then we run it on our children. And even though we're like, duh, I know that everybody knows that, it's nobody can remember it. They cannot
Yeah.
remember. Once you're in your merged parts, you cannot remember where it came from. You can't remember that you got hurt by it. You're fully in it. You're in it. It's like your brain switches over. That's what it means to be in a part. Your brain switches over, you're in the merged part, you fully see your child the way your parents saw you or someone who hurt you saw you, and you are seeing them that way through the lens of your merged part.
Mm.
I think I kind of wanted to try to think of an example.
Well, do you mean of articulating how that feels or like an example from because I have one.
Yeah, you go.
So my daughter was basically sending me into like a rage, like internally. Now I do practice what I preach on this show. Like I definitely do all the things when it comes to treating my daughter in kind and connected ways. Like I will leave an interaction if I'm really finding it too much. I will get out of there so that I don't, yell or say something harsh. Now I do slip up and I apologize, but I'm pretty good. Like I'm pretty, on my game when it comes to treating her with respect and kindness.
By the way, she's 2.5, right?
She's almost 3. Yeah, she'll be 3 in
Oh
a
my
couple months.
God, she's almost 3. Just in people don't know how old your kid is. I just think
Yeah,
it's
so she's almost 3. So she's like, so like, yeah, we have like typical toddler situations where it's very frustrating and you're trying to move through your day and you come up against a toddler who's like not cooperating or whatever, and that just happens over and over. And but what was happening is that I was seeing her. I realized after doing a lot of work on this that I was seeing my daughter as like my tormentor, like my abuser in a way. Like I wasn't allowed to do anything. I had to like do what she wanted me to do. And if I didn't do it right and a meltdown ensued, I was blaming myself because I wasn't collaborating properly or doing non-coercion right or getting to the root of like what her feelings were
right.
in time to prevent them from happening. So you can kind of see, I hope, that the way that I was actually internalizing, like my internal process when she would get upset would be, oh my fucking God, she's so goddamn difficult. She's so mean to me. She's so intense. I hate this. And then I would really feel that in my body. Like I would be so enraged. But then underneath that, very quickly after, I would just want to cry because I'd be in so much pain because I'd feel that that was all my fault. So on the first initial reaction is all this rage. Oh my God, I can't deal with her. She's so much. She's so difficult. She always is crying. She's such a whiner, like why is she like this?
But isn't that's a merged part? So that's the part that's merged with how your parents saw you, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think
Your parents, when you had big feelings, that's how they saw you. That's an internalized program.
yes. And I also think like my parents, but also my experience as a child in general. Like I think my big feelings were not allowed or tolerated by any adult around me
Yeah.
growing up. They
Right.
just were like they were condemned. They were like, I would feel totally cursed by any emotion that wasn't, something that was calm or outwardly like appeared to be like happy or accepting of what was going on. Like if I was
Right.
upset or angry, like if I cried or was mad, those two things were really not okay. So, so I think, yeah, the first initial response was like, these feelings aren't okay. What's wrong with my child? Which is a direct history. Like this is my history coming up. And then underneath that, after, it was very quickly after, I would often dissolve in like tears. I would maybe cry or maybe not, but I would feel deeply sad. And then I would beat myself up for it for the rest of like the day. Like it would last for a long time. Just feeling deeply ashamed of my feelings and also of my inability to prevent her feelings from happening. So I'd be ashamed of my own rage and I'd also be, in a way, ashamed of hers because I'd be like,
Right. So that means your merged part is so obviously there's a merged part that's judging her feelings, and then there's a merged part that's judging your feelings for reacting.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I have two merge parts going on that would be, vacillating back and forth and completely running my system so that like I had very little room to feel self energy. And then I would also go through times where I would feel like my whole self energy, like I couldn't access it at all. So I'd be performing according to how I thought myself would perform. So I'd be like doing this is how self energy Cara would play with my kid or treat my
Trying to
kid,
fake it. Trying to fake it.
totally trying to fake it, but actually feeling like that's another like that was almost like an imposter.
Yeah. It reminds me of like the way parents and people see children as manipulative.
Hmm.
It reminds me I had a boyfriend. Before I even had kids, I had a boyfriend. If I and I'm Jewish, so like I have some I don't know if this is a Jewish thing or not, but I feel like I have some whiny qualities that remind me of like part of my heritage. Like And he hated my whining. Absolutely couldn't stand it. He'd be like, "Stop whining." He was so mean to me about my whining. That was his merge part. I hung out with his family and I saw his mother bawl out his sister's kid for whining in the meanest way. She like grabbed this little kid's face and goes, "We do not whine in this family." I was like, "Oh, I get it." His merged part that couldn't stand my whining because he got shamed for whining. And I feel like it's not like what I want to share with parents right now. It's not that you have to stop yourself from having merged parts. You have to recognize your merged part.
Yeah. And you have to get in relationship with your merge parts. This is the thing that I was missing. Okay, because I teach this all the time in my fucking job, and yet I'm telling you, it was so goddamn difficult to actually embody this that I had to rigorously work on it, and I really
In
did. I really
therapy.
spent time
In therapy?
building a relationship outside of therapy and inside of therapy.
Okay.
So doing this with my therapist, but also actually actively getting inside of a relationship with these merged parts outside of therapy when it was happening and when it wasn't. So
How do
literally
you do that?
so thinking about it, so there's meditations, which I can link in the show notes. Dick will
Okay.
guide you through the process, but I would do those, or I would just notice it as it would come up. And I also had to organize it too. This was done in therapy with my therapist. We realized my daughter was becoming my abuser in my parts mind's eye, right? In my merge parts mind's eye. I was seeing my daughter as like my abuser, making me feel all these horrible things. It's her fault. That's the projection.
All parents have this, Kara.
Right,
Every
right.
parent. Right.
So I had to organize that first. I had to realize that I was even doing that, which is, you think somebody who's doing therapy with parents all day, like, would know that, but you get stuck, right? You can't know that when you're in a park. So I had to organize that in therapy. And then outside of therapy, I had to then acknowledge that the part was there and build a relationship with it. So I would start seeing that part as a protector, like as what its real job was to do, which was to, I think that this part is trying to help me actually, ironically, it doesn't do a very good job of it, but its real role is to help me be a good parent.
Really?
Which is ironic because it's so what it is I'll break it down and I'll try. It gets a little bit confusing, but I'll try. My daughter is screaming and crying. It's triggering me into rage. And then it's leading me to blame myself for not being a good enough parent. I think that enraged part is going, if you did a better job at being non-coercive, if you really filled up her connection bucket, if you really listened to her when she was trying to collaborate with you earlier, if you could figure out a better solution to this screen time situation that you're navigating, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here in the feelings.
But I don't think it's trying to get you to be, I mean, it sounds like it's trying to get you to be a good parent, but really it's trying to protect you against pain, some kind of pain.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That's the deeper, like, but I also think that like what helped me get into a relationship with it was you're trying to protect me from pain because I don't want to deal with her feelings, but you're also trying to help me prevent her from being in pain,
Yes, that makes
right? You're also working to help me protect her. So thank
sense.
you, part for like really being, helping
Mm.
me to be a better parent is kind of how I ended up really getting into a relationship with her. I was like, oh, you are helping me and I appreciate that. But I could almost really value it when I saw the work that it was doing for Aaliyah, if that makes sense. Like I almost appreciated it more when I noticed and got this message from it. Like, don't you see? I'm helping you parent your daughter more
Oh, I
loving.
see. You saw the underlying intent of the part.
Right, of the part because I do really appreciate that it's trying to prevent me from being in pain, right? I get that that's a
But it's actually fucking up your parenting.
it is, I know, but I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
But in
Okay.
this part where I'm trying to relate to it, right? Where I'm trying to get where it's coming from, see its
I see.
perspective,
I see. Okay.
I really benefited me personally from understanding, oh, you're trying to help me actually be a better parent to her.
Okay.
You're not doing a good job because it's really too much what you're doing. But
Right.
I get your intention and I can validate that. The outcome is no good. I was like, this is how I would speak to it. I'd be like, the outcome, not good, my friend. But your intention, I really get it. I really actually appreciate that. And I think it had been screaming at me for a long time saying, I'm trying to protect you from pain, you fucking idiot. And I was going, I don't need you to do that anymore. But something about me learning from it that it's helping me protect my daughter from pain really made me feel like warm and fuzzy towards it. I was like, oh, you care about her too. Because I think there's something in me that is like resistant to support from me, like me, Cara. Like, I don't need you, part. I don't need you to protect me from shit.
Right.
Oh, but once I realized, oh, you're trying to protect my daughter. All right, now we can be friends. We're on the same team here. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, except sometimes merged parts actually they don't have good intention. I mean, no, they're always trying to support you, but they're like I can't always reason with my merged parts. I just want to say, well, maybe I could. Maybe I just haven't gone. I have a part which almost most many people do, but I have a part who always is, it's merged with society and sexism and misogyny, right? So it's always telling me I'm ugly and old and fat and unlovable, whatever, not good enough, blah, that
Mm-hmm.
part. That's relentless in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And now I just hear it. I don't really engage with it. I just notice it now.
Yeah, but there's something about that critic that is protecting you from.
Well, she's trying to, but now I know that that's what she's trying to do. I used to like really try to like talk back and argue back and stuff, and now I just go, "Oh, that part's scared. That part,
Yeah, yeah.
that
Well, no,
part's
but
scared," and try to, yeah.
that's totally like I think
So that is engaging with it,
you're
right?
engaging with it. Well, see, okay, here's
Yeah,
the thing. You can tell it to shut the fuck up and never speak to me again, which is what I was doing with my anger.
I
I was
see.
going, "What the fuck is wrong with you, you piece of shit mom? Why the fuck are you so angry?" You have nothing to be angry about. This is a normal toddler doing normal toddler shit. And this is like, you're a bad mom for being triggered by your toddler. Are you nuts?
Right.
Also, you're a fraud because you run a podcast on parenting. So you should
Yeah.
just fucking quit your job and rot in your bed because you're no good to anybody, right? Like, this is what I would tell my part. And then I would cry because I would feel so shamed, right? I know, like, it's
Yeah,
it's heavy shit we're doing here, but like
that was
I'm
good. That was good to just really hear the merged part.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it like lightly for the purposes of this podcast.
Good job.
Okay, but I'm
Yeah.
telling you, this is very painful material for me when I'm
Yeah.
in therapy. Anyway, what I now do is I don't tell it to shut the fuck up and go die, right? I'm just like, oh, okay, so you're here. Like I really actually see you. I appreciate you. Like, thank you for showing up. I know now that you're trying to protect me. You're actually saving me and my kid from pain. I mean, that's your goal.
Right.
But you know what? When you show up like this, you don't do that very well. And I'm really glad I have you. Like, you've pushed me in so many ways in my life. Like, you really have gotten me to where I am. Like, I don't take shit from anybody, like that. Thank you for like being this part for me. It's really helped me survive a lot of shit that I experienced. But here in this moment, I need to access self energy here in this moment. Like, can you please step back so I can do that?
Oh,
And it
wow.
it listens, but I had to practice it, right? It's not like I've been working towards this as a process for myself for years. It's
Right.
working
A lot of
now.
this stuff. Yeah. Right.
It's working now. It
Well,
does
that's why I
actually shift.
felt my self-hating voice about my body image stuff.
Hmm.
Been working on it for my whole life. And now I do have a self that goes, well, that doesn't really matter. That's what I have a voice now that goes, you know what, my looks don't really matter, and I'm gonna get old and be a little old lady, and I'm gonna die, and that actually this whole looks thing is not really important. Like I do have like a whole truth now that comes in the self that takes over the other part, that brings a contradiction to the
Right.
mind part.
Right.
And just to say, for people who are unfamiliar with this process, you have your core self, which you could think of as your inner child. When they say inner child work, it's like your innocent, sweet, sweet, like child self. So open, vulnerable, wants to be close to people, like loves nature. I don't know, like the unbroken part. And our merged parts like attack our protectors, attack those parts of us to try to keep that part safe. So a lot of the healing is to actually remember how you got hurt.
Hmm.
This is why people go to therapy. They go to therapy because they have to get to their inner child that was buried and abused, and reparent that part.
Yeah.
Reparent the child, and say and be really loving. And that takes time, but that's also how we then become loving parents. That's how we become
Yes.
loving parents. We learn to love our inner child and not merge like crazy on ourselves, so then we can
Yeah.
actually extend that to our children.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to say that what helps me unblend, like I merge, right, for in this anger and then in this sadness that actually renders me unavailable to my child. Like I'm actually not there. Like it's about me now.
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm directly responding to my own needs and not the child in front of me when I'm in those parts. What helped me get out of that and actually reconnect with her, which makes me not afraid anymore. Like I know now I can do it. So I've realized that I've broken through. I'm actually embodying it, and I'm reconnecting with her, and I'm feeling connected to her now.
Oh,
Was
so glad.
I know. Thank you. I really appreciate that because it's been fucking just been working like a dog on this.
Yeah.
But what actually helped me embody it was the relationship with the parts and the compassion, the self-compassion, the ability to experience what had just happened as a protector part, as a gift in a way, and to not shame the hell out of myself. Because once you see it that way, it's not about you being a shitty mom anymore or a bad person anymore or immature or childish or reactive or angry. I don't see myself anymore as like an angry or reactive person, actually, which really used to make me so sad to feel like I'm like this angry person. I'm out of control in my anger. I can't even control it.
Mm,
How am I supposed to like endure the rest of our lives together if I'm an angry mom? Even
yeah.
even if it's not externally, what if it never
Right,
goes
just
away internally?
internally. But you're not having that judgment about yourself
I'm not
now.
having that judgment anymore at all because I see it for what it really is. I bet when you listen to this podcast, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I could call Rythea Lee. Because that's why I reached out to her in the first place. I was a fan of Rythea's. I watched her TikToks. I wrote her, I said, look, we're going to need to collaborate because I love you and I'm in love with you. And I bet if you're listening to this, you're like, I want Rythea's guidance. I want to directly talk to Rythea too. Well, you can, and you should, because Rythea actually offers 30-minute support sessions with people who need input on stuck places in their parenting. And I can tell you as her friend, I use her all the time via voice notes. And I want you to know that so can you. You just need to go to the link in our show notes to book a mentoring session with Rythea. She offers 30-minute sessions for parents, and she also has a weekly session open at a reduced rate for low-income and BIPOC individuals.
So, if you could use some of Rythea's clear, confident, loving, connected, supportive, and brilliant advice, then you need to head over to calendly.com/Rythea or Rythea.com. And those links will be in the show notes.
You know, it's interesting because I went through this when my daughter's 13, everybody, and when she started school for the first time in her life this past fall, she started individuating from me like hardcore, like violently. I don't know, that's my interpretation of it. Like she just like pulled away and started having her own life, and it was like so excruciating for me. And I went into a lot of needy abandonment stuff that I was about my mom. I guess that's different than merged. I don't even know if that's, but anyway, I couldn't stop pulling on my kid to talk to me and tell me things and don't you love me kind of energy. And then that would make her be more like, "Ugh," and then the cycle was like torture. I felt
Mhm.
tortured by my kid the way my mother used to torture me by not connecting with me. I was like reliving my mother not like bonding with me.
That is the same, by the way. That is, you're in a part when you're doing that
But is that a merged part?
that you can't get out of.
Well, when I was pulling on her, was that a merged part?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. So
Yeah. Because you couldn't stop yourself, even though you knew, intellectually you knew, because we talked about this. You were like, I know I shouldn't be pulling on her. I know the best thing to do is give her space. She'll come to me when she's ready. You couldn't actually embody that. That's what we're saying.
yeah, and then I had this whole series of events happen where I realized that I was pulling at her, I don't know how to explain this, but, like, I was really judging myself for pulling on her and trying
Yeah,
really,
same
really hard
things.
not
It's the
to.
same thing. See?
Then I realized later that there was something good in my pulling, like,
Mhm.
picking up on that she needed me.
Yeah.
Figure out how to still get in there, but not from a child place.
Yeah, that's really
I was
cool.
just trying to be like, "Okay, I'm just gonna let her do whatever she wants." And just like I gotta stop pulling on her. So I was like trying to give her tons and tons of space. And then I realized actually I still need to try to stay close to her and go after her. But I need to do
But
it
in a new
from
way.
not a child place. I need to
Yes.
not a child place. Because I'm actually the only one who can really get in there with her. And I do that.
Right.
Like
And were
by
you successful? Were
yeah.
you able to shift? Yeah, so you ended up embodying that whole, you found a place where you could be in your self energy and still be what she needs and what you know she needs you to be, but not with this merged part operating system that is like, you're now becoming did you say that it was your mom that used to pull on you, or you used to pull on
No.
your mom?
I used to well, she wouldn't let me pull on her. She hated when I pulled on her.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah.
But I did energetically pull on her until I finally just gave up on her and cut her off, but then
Uh-huh.
inside myself, I wanted to pull on her, but she hated it so much that I had to
Right.
stop. So,
So there's the abandonment. Yeah.
yeah, so awful. Anyway, so, but it's a process. I go in and out. Some days I am still pulling on her from my kid. It's not like I just graduate, and now I just never do it anymore. It's not like that. It's like it's something I'm working with.
Yeah.
I can tell when I'm in my needy kid part. Also, she tells me. She'll go, "Mom, you're so needy. It's so annoying." She'll tell me right away, or like she'll just resist me even more. And
Right.
sometimes she's resisting me, and I'm in my adult, and eventually I'll keep at it, and then she'll open, and I'll have, you know what I mean? So I'm
Right.
I'm learning all the time. But what shifted was sobbing my fucking guts out about my
Yeah.
mother. I mean, like doing, working really hard on the core early wound
Yeah.
and separating it out from my kid.
Yeah. 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 That's what I
Hardest
did too.
no, and you helped me. I just, it's like you're a torturous pain, like, because we say on this podcast that our children will bring us, all children will bring you to your unhealed wounds. That's what children do. It's designed that way. They come
Yeah.
in and bang up against our closed doors, and that's just what they do. Like, let me in that room, and that's what
Yeah.
all children do. And there's rooms I didn't even know I had. I mean, a lot of times I don't even know there's a closed room. I have no
Yeah.
idea why my kid is making me so angry or so sad or so like avoidant. I have
Yeah.
no idea. And then I
Yeah.
have to, yeah, it's like this is really, really hard about parenting. So I just sort of just like, did you want to say something?
No, I just remember at one point on the show, I said, I think my theory is that our children are actually trying to pull us back to self energy all the time. And I really think that's true.
Oh, I love that. I
I
love
really think that's true. Like, I believe that with all of my being. I really think that our kids know who we really are,
oh
and they're pulling us there. And I know that to be true with my daughter. I mean, I know she knows exactly when I'm online for who I really am. She feels it. I feel it. We have a telepathic, unconscious connected flow between us that I know she needs from me. Like she's asking me to bring myself there when I'm not there. And I really believe that our children, if we see them that way, can help us confront and build, well, not even confront, I don't even like to use that word because it's too, it almost has, there's like a potential for conflict there, but I want to say build relationship with those parts of ourselves that we get stuck in. So your child is your reminder that you're in a blended or merged part.
Right. You know, sometime I want us to do an episode on kids' parts.
Yeah. We
I
did
don't
touched on that. Remember when you talked about how you'd help Tori with something? You made up an
I don't
example.
really see her parts as much as I'd like to. I would like to see her parts more and be more aware
Mm,
of which part she's in. I think that would help me a
that would
lot.
be cool. I don't
Yeah.
know how we could do that while protecting her confidentiality and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, that's true. Well, right, we'd have to talk about it more generally. I feel like I want to say just a couple more things about merged parts. I guess I'm wondering if we could give people advice if they're like, I don't really understand my merged parts at all. I don't know what we could just say as the beginning of exploring your merged part.
All right. Well, one thing I will say is you have to check out the meditations that I'm going to attach in the show notes
Okay.
because Dick leads you through. I mean, these are like kind of like foundational, I guess, like places to start. And they're, free, right? So like you could check out one of these IFS meditations and he'll guide you through. But it
Okay.
just starts with like connecting to your body. It's kind of like the
Mm,
somatic, the somatic like place that you start with, like taking breaths, identifying what's showing up for you in that moment and going from there.
mm-hmm.
But if people like, because your question was, is like, what if people don't know how to identify their parts, right?
No, it was like, yeah, identify a merged part
Identify a merged part specifically.
with their children. Like I'm just trying to think of an example. Like your kid does something that makes you upset, angry, reactive, and then you judge them.
Oh,
You can pretty much bet if you're judging your child, you're in a merged part.
yeah. I think when you feel like any feelings of like, yeah, judgment or
Blame,
blame,
victimhood,
hmm
you're
resentment,
critical of your kid.
hmm
Did you say resentment?
yeah, resentment.
Yeah. Right. You're in a merged part when you have any of those feelings. You're you're re-experiencing an internalized part that you took on when someone felt that way about you.
hmm
And it's also, we're talking about parents a lot, but it could also be systems of oppression. Obviously, we internalize racism, we internalize sexism, we internalize homophobia, whatever. We internalize all of that and then we run it on ourselves. Those are merged parts also.
Okay, I just had a thought.
Yeah.
There is a voice in my head that's like the parents of the internet that have kids who really hurt their siblings or abuse their siblings or hurt their parents, are violent, um, destroy their homes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I have this voice in my head that people are like, you can't apply this to those people
To
because
the parents or the children?
this whole way of thinking about how you see your child. Because I feel like people would say in those cases, the child is actually an abuser, is actually an aggressor, is actually the parents are actually victims. These are things you actually can't reframe. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I just had that thought that I feel like it,
That's the merged part that just had that thought.
I guess.
It is. It is.
But it's true though that people will actually say that.
Well, but still, it's a part of you that just merged with like mainstream people who believe in authoritarianism in the worst case scenario. Your brain just looked for a part that would find the person, like the thought form that would be the most cynical of what we're talking about. That's a merged part of you.
I know, but I almost want to address it so that
Okay,
people
let's
have
address it
so
though.
that we have so that we have a
Yeah.
perspective on that. You know what I
Okay,
mean? Like
sure. Yeah,
this is
yeah.
what we think about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
you go first.
Well, I mean, I have a whole fuck ton of empathy for parents who are in that situation, first of all. That is, um, no parent ever expects themselves to be in a situation like that. And no parent would necessarily know what to do in a situation like that. Not even an experienced therapist or, parent expert.
You're
Like,
talking about this is really complicated what you're bringing up because I don't think it's so cut and dry.
well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say people will bring that up and be like, you can't apply this IFS framework to extreme situations.
Well, sure, fine. Then you should get professional help. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you could say that about any extreme situation. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, that's like, I mean, healing applies. Self-responsibility of a parent is relevant in any situation. No matter, even if it's a terrible, terrible situation, the parent still has a fulcrum where they could take responsibility for their part of the dynamic.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, see that I just think there are people that will disagree with that.
What I just said?
Yeah.
I mean, even someone who's in an abusive relationship has to do their own work to get themselves out of it.
I know, you're right, but I
But
just
the other thing is to just remember that that parents have all the power, and I know you. I mean, you're trying to bring up a situation where somehow the whole power structure is completely opposite, which is extremely rare. Yes, it does happen, but in like most situations with children, the parents have all the power until the kid is like what, like a big, strong, tall teenager, and then it shifts. By the time they get to that point, yeah, they fucking need professional help. Like,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but I also think that this framework can apply to the parent when it comes to
That's
thinking about
what
your
that's why I
child.
was trying to say it doesn't matter how bad the situation, a parent can
Yeah.
always take responsibility for
Yeah, 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 yeah.
part of
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
But I also really hate when people find these situations where the kid is abusive to them, which I'm not saying that never happens. I mean, my
Yeah.
daughter hit me for 6 years.
Yeah.
Is that her fault? No. Is it my fault? No. I mean, I still had to do all my internal work to figure out how to show up for that.
I guess I'm frustrated because I've had a lot of conversations online with people who like really come for this like trauma informed like family systems approach, which still like even the family systems approach involves a lot of like taking the child and pathologizing the child.
Hmm.
So I guess I'm just frustrated and I want to like almost directly talk about that in some way. And I want to like
About
talk
how
about the
people talk.
framework
Uh-huh.
of IFS slash like, thinking about non-coercive collaborative parenting because the two, in my opinion, they're connected. And speak to like that, the problem with seeing things that way.
With seeing yourself as a victim to your child?
Yeah.
But
With
that's what all of our that's everything we do, all of our episodes is about. We're basically asking parents to take responsibility. That's basically the whole point of everything that we do, Kara.
I know, but I feel like there's the parents who are like, for example, we're getting divorced and my teenage son is now acting out and he's being ridiculous at home. He leaves his mom's house, he comes to dad's and he's like, he's like never fucking answers a question. He like fucks off to his room. He says he's gonna punch a hole in the wall. Like, please somebody like tell me what to do to fix my child. And then those parents are the ones that are like not open to parent support. And then you get people commenting, being like, no, child therapy is the way forward for this child. Get this child in therapy to teach them the tools.
I know it's terrible. I know, honey, I'm with you. But we do
Okay.
talk about this on our episodes all the time. We really do.
Okay. All right. I feel like I want that.
It's funny because I really do feel like this is your merge part. I'm saying that with total love.
I know.
I feel like wait, people are gonna judge us. That's like a merged part. Wait, people are gonna think that we're being too permissive, blah blah blah. What about in these horrible situations? That's a merged part.
Not
That's
even permissive, but like more so like people think that this doesn't actually address the issue in those cases. And I want to like speak
sure,
to
but
that.
you can say that. But you can say that about everything we do. Every single person like who listens to our podcast go. But what if your kid runs into a road? It's the same thing. But what if your kid wants to eat sugar for every single meal? What if your kid wants to watch screens 24 hours? It's all
Yeah,
the same shit. What if my kid is abusive and it's their
true.
fault?
I don't know. I guess I have a deeper worry that I'm being like as a family therapist irresponsible by not addressing those things directly. You know what I
But
mean?
you have to address them directly when you're with the family.
Yes.
Okay.
But I guess as like a person who does a podcast, I'm like, I have this fear that like, what if people hear what I have to say and are like, that approach is insane? And how the fuck could she be ethically practicing as a therapist? Because she's not addressing these like really extreme situations.
So funny. This is a part, but yeah,
I
okay.
know, but I don't know. I feel like I need to say something or we need to do an episode, but I guess maybe you're
I'm
right.
actually totally not interested in that at all.
Okay. Because you don't want to
I don't
speak
fucking
to
care.
like,
No, because I feel like this is one of your parts that's like, what if I get attacked? And for me, you could say that about every single thing in my life that I do. I mean,
this is the common criticism of, I think, parent support versus child versus like family therapy. Like this is the what about when? And then everybody's take on it
sure,
is so
everybody
different from ours.
right, because as much if you blame your child and try to get your kid fixed, you don't have to do your work.
I know, but I wish that we could like do an episode on that, like breaking down the systemic um
Oh, the systemic
approaches to
to like it's the
uh,
kid's problem.
pathologizing kids, right? Like this conversation
Oh,
kind of led me there in my mind. Like
I see.
people will hear this and be like, you can't apply that to every situation. And my brain is going to like, yes, you can. And here's why. Because in actually systemically, what happens is like you get parents day in fucking day out being like, my kid's the problem. I need the therapist to fix them. Hell no, I'm not gonna go. What do I need to address?
Right.
You know, and I find like that's kind of like my biggest gripe with the job, the specific job that I have. And I'm actually trying to actively like back out of it because I'm like, I don't want to work with kids anymore because that's the problem that I face is that the parents actually are not open to doing any work,
Right.
real work.
That's really valid as a therapist that you don't want to be in that dynamic, that family dynamic. I feel like we have to close what we were doing before we got onto this particular thing.
Oh, I can't remember where we were. I was talking about how our kids bring us to our self energy.
I mean, we haven't said this directly, but just to say that our merged parts lead us to our deepest traumas. That's why we avoid them. They are connected to the most painful experiences of our lives where we had to actually cut off from who we truly were and merge with the people who were hurting us. So, like, that is the most painful dynamic of being a child. And the saddest thing is that those parts take over and ruin our lives. They are so it's self-attack at the deepest level, and that's what makes life hard. Is that I mean, there's so many other things that make life hard, but like in terms of personal process, it's the merged parts that make our lives unbearable. So that's why we're talking about this, because that is the number one thing. I believe that's the number one reason why people are mean to their children, harsh to their children, controlling, blaming, all of that is from our merged parts. It's also how we get our children to create merged parts.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we're like, blaming our child for being lazy all the time and never helping, and why can't you never help? Blah, blah, blah. I never had to do that at your age. I was blah, 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 blah. We criticize them for not doing enough. They internalize that and then they feel that they're not good enough and they judge themselves. And then that's their merged part. Now they have a merged part with you. And we don't want to do that. That's how you pass down trauma, pain, patterns.
Yeah. An easy way to think about merge parts is thinking about how the parent voice becomes the child's inner monologue. That's a good way to think about it.
Right. So when you're about to say something to your kid, you could think about that.
Right. That's why I try to make things about me and not about my daughter, very intentionally all the time. Not that she's being extra or whatever, but that I'm tired or that like I'm feeling sad. You know, the other day I cried. We have this song that comes on. It's a Daniel Tiger song from a show she watches, and it's really sad. Well, to me, because I lost my brother, but it's about how much he loves his baby sister. And it's a really like sad song. Like it's like very like a ballad, and it's really, to me, it sounds really like mournful, and
Yeah.
it comes on all the time because we have a like a Spotify thing, so it just like plays through there. And every time it comes on, I cry because it just brings me back to like all the loving memories I have of my older brother when I was little. So I always cry. And the other day I was crying, and my daughter looked at me, and she noticed, and she said with the most empathy, like it was just it was like the most beautiful thing. She looked at me and she goes, "What happened?" what happened? And I just couldn't say anything. I was just still crying. And she said, you miss Uncle Russell.
She's such a sweetheart.
I know. I know.
She's just like completely one with you. You know what I mean? Like she's
I
so
know.
good to you.
But the reason I brought that up is because I don't want her to, I want her to know what's going on with me. I'm not a robot, but I want her to know that she's not to blame for my feelings.
Mm,
So that she does, my voice doesn't become my critical voice,
mm.
doesn't become her worst insecurity.
You know, what you're talking about is so beautiful because people are so scared when they hear about non-coercive collaborative parenting that kids are going to become entitled,
Mm,
narcissistic people who only care about their own feelings. And that's such a beautiful story about your
mm.
daughter. That's so untrue. It's like the opposite, actually, of that.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And when you live this philosophy, I think you really have to live it to know. Like you really have to see your child do things out of their own free will. Like for example, this morning, I can't remember what it was. I had placed something, like I think I brought her water over and she didn't realize it and she noticed it some time later and she said, "Oh, you brought it over. Thanks, Mom." It's just like it's just stuff like that. It's like just being connected to me, appreciating what I do for her in the same way that I appreciate what she does just in general. It's just like such a reciprocal experience being a non-coercive collaborative parent. Like what you put out, you will get back.
It's so true. And there also are phases of development when children are very self-absorbed, and that's also normal and healthy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to wait for it. You know, you
Yeah.
have to trust and wait for it that if you're not reacting to their selfishness and judging it, eventually it will, they'll feel safe enough to come back out.
And constantly worrying that they're an entitled, spoiled brat, that actually just trusting their process, like we always, say.
It's actually having to shut down and separate from the parents. I feel that create a lot more selfish behavior looking things sometimes because kids have to go into deep protection
Yeah.
as available to connection, and then that affects all their relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on because I just thought of another example, but I think we should cut it.
Okay.
Yeah. This has been Your Kids Don't Suck. You can find me, Cara Tedstone, at www.caratedstonetherapy.com and on Instagram at Cara Tedstone Therapy. On my website, you'll find links to recommended readings and a link to my Reparenting with Mindfulness workbook, available now on Amazon.
You can find me, Rythea Lee, at www.rythea.com. That's RYTHEA.com. There you'll find published books, articles, and music, and parenting videos. Also, I'm on TikTok at Rythea Lee, on Instagram at Rythea Lee. You can book parent mentoring sessions with me through my website. And also I have an Advice from a Loving Bitch YouTube show that helps people heal self-hatred, and that's rythea.com/advice. It is important and essential to put our voices, Rythea and Cara, in a context. We are two white, cisgendered, straight, middle-class women living with financial and societal privilege. Because of this, our perspectives are limited and do not reflect the realities of all of our listeners. This podcast will feature guests with expertise around conscious parenting who differ in race, class, abilities, sexual orientation, and histories from us, to broaden the conversation and reflect the lives of as many people as possible. 25% of the proceeds of this podcast will go to creators of color who have been mentors and influences on our work and in our growth as parents.
If you like our show, please subscribe and stay tuned for more conscious parenting advice and insights. And check out our link tree at linktr.ee/yourkidsdon'tsuck to donate and connect with us.